I have 4 compilations of short stories, and it's in the folk horror genre, which has been really popular in the last few years. To me, folk horror is just a subgenre or a type of dark fairy tale. I think they're the same thing. I'll let the scholars argue it out over whether they're the same or different. It doesn't matter to me. I'm an English teacher. I just don't fucking care. So I will say that folk horror is not the same thing as slasher films or Stephen King or any sort of horror, traditional slasher horror book written by one of those dude bro authors that everyone read back in the 1990s and the 1980s. Not the same thing. If it was, I wouldn't be reading it and I wouldn't be recommending it. So I have 4 collections. I'll start with the one I'm the most excited about, which is 50 Beasts to Break Your Heart by Gina Rose Nethercott. Again, it's 50 Beasts to Break Your Heart and Other Stories. There's a blurb on the front by Kelly Link, who is also a dark fairy tale writer. She's written several things. The cover is by the artist Swan Bones, and you can find Swan Bones on Etsy and on Instagram. I actually have a couple of her prints. I love this artist. So I was really stoked when this book released. I had it on my list before it came out. Here's a picture of the author. And these are her stories. So this is just Gina Rose Nethercott. These are her stories in her little world. And Stark Panther. Ooh, look. She has all these neat little sketches in here of characters in her stories, creatures in her stories. It just seems really, really fantastical. The dedication is to the autumn people. Blessed be the bones. Maybe I should read this in autumn, but I'm reading it in spring. Actually, surprise, surprise. Spring is not my favorite season. It's actually autumn. I know I do a lot of gardening, and I may have to do a plant tour here in a second, but I really do love fall, and I always have because I grew up in East Tennessee. And you may get to see one of my hummingbirds. I have lots of hummingbirds and butterflies and bees out today. Again, it's mid-April, but that's North Alabama. We're already right in spring, hardcore. So I'm excited to read this. I did put this on my spring list. Here's more little sketches and drawings. Honestly, I have such a huge stack. I'll probably get to it before fall, but I don't know if I'll get to it in the next few weeks because I am reading 5 books right now. That's correct. I have 5 books going and I just got this one in. So let me read some story titles. The Autumn Kill, Sundown at the Eternal Staircase, Possessions, Homebody, A Haunted Calendar. Those are just a few of the titles. It sounds very intriguing. Okay, so I have not read any of these yet, but I'm wondering, Sundown at the Eternal Staircase, I wonder if that's some of those urban myth about the mythology about, staircases found out in the middle of the woods. Have you guys heard about this? It's been all online. All the paranormal shows and podcasts have been talking about staircases, like people just finding random staircase out in kind of nature reclaimed spots or the woods. So I don't know if you've heard of that. Let me know. I'm very intrigued. I haven't found any staircase out here. There's 160 acres behind me though. So, who knows? Maybe I'll get a staircase. But I love the cover. It's gorgeous. I like the filigree. I love the little goat people. So I'm very excited about this one. Like I said, the artist is Swan Bones, and she's on Etsy and Instagram. And I have a couple of her prints. So this next one I have had on my list since fall, and I wanted to get this. It's edited by Tori Bovalina. Bovalano. I hope I said that right. An anthology of folk horror, The Gathering Dark. So it's called The Gathering Dark. And these are some New York Times bestselling authors. I'm not going to read all their names. I'll just hold it up. This sounds really, really good. The in cover, the flap says, "These are the stories that haunt us." So it sounds intriguing. I saw this last year, and I wanted to get the hardback edition. It does have a content warning, and I'm just going to go ahead and read it just because the book comes with a content warning. The content warning is implied sexual abuse and trauma, body horror, gore, violence, death of a child, teenager, mentions of drug, substance abuse, terminal illness. I'm not sure what they mean by just teenager. Oh well. So It may not be your thing if you're sensitive to any of those issues, but it's not regular horror. Okay, I wouldn't have ordered it if it was, or at least I haven't read it, but I don't think it is. It certainly doesn't look like it is. I mean, this is not the format that you would find a one of those dude bro books in. It's too pretty. It's too pretty and frilly. And I also find that horror written by women, and these seem to be all women authors, horror written by women tends to be more psychological and more embedded in something much deeper, like the paranormal or the preternatural. Not so much, oh, there's some dude bro in a mask chasing you through the woods. And I'm not saying that guys don't write about supernatural stuff too, they do, but usually I think with women it's more involved, more like looking into a mirror darkly, or looking at the world through that dark mirror, what the world does to you and what it puts upon you and what it reflects on you. So I like to read a lot of folk horror by women because it's so different than the bullshit written by men. And a lot of bullshit written by men is why we need content warnings, because if they don't write it, they carry out their own little fantasies in real life. Oh, did that offend somebody? Oh, look at that, look at that. So this is another book I've been really looking forward to, Folk by Zoe Gilbert. And again, this is just all her short stories. And I'm not sure what this book is really about, other than it's just folk horror. It's dark fairy tales, because I've flipped through it a couple times. I haven't read it. I actually got this from my husband because we saw it on another booktube channel, and we were just really intrigued. It does have a map, so I think all these stories are going to take place in this world. So it's like a paracosm. It's its own universe. So, and she is British. It looks like was this published in Britain? I do know this one is a UK publisher. Edited by Mike Ashley, Queens of the Abyss, Law Stories from the Women of the Weird. And if you guys remember pulp fiction magazines in the early 20th century, the types that Lovecraft and Ambrose Bierce and all those guys were published in, Ambrose Bierce and Lovecraft, two of my very favorite authors. These are the women that wrote alongside them. They were their contemporaries, their peers. And no, they didn't really get their place in society at the time, and really not really post-mortem until now. They're still considered niche because they are female writers of horror, of weird. Again, not what you think slasher film bullshit. You know, in America, we have a really weird sense of what's gore and what's horror. And as someone who has a master's in English literature, that's really annoying, because it's really difficult to explain to people that our social consciousness around this genre has really been kind of ruined by slasher films of the 70s through the 90s, and well into the 2000s too. That's when they became like over the top, just gross. I'm not even going to mention any titles, but I'm sure you can think of something. So yeah, this is about the women who wrote stories about that type of Lovecraftian otherness, the type of uncanniness that goes bump in the night, that there's something more than just a monster under the bed, where it's that liminal space. And this is going to be interesting because a lot of these women I haven't really read before. I will say that the last story in here is Leonora Carrington, and I am very familiar with Carrington. You know, she's a female surrealist painter too. Again, the female surrealists, the artists, they were also kind of pushed out by the dude bros of the time. They had very few allies and sort of were very much allies for each other and watched out for each other, and their story largely remains untold. But you're seeing a lot now in the last few years that's been published about the female surrealist. And Leonora Carrington was a renowned painter who left Europe after World War II for Mexico, where she spent the rest of her life, never to return to England, which was a good thing for her because England was very toxic. Leonora Carrington also wrote, and a lot of people do not realize that she was also an author. And I'm glad to see her in this collection. I have another collection of just her short stories that I'm probably going to show in a video that I do of just the female surrealist, because I have several coffee table books and biographies of the surrealist that I've collected over the past few years, and it's a stack. And I even have the Leonora Feeney book. I'm sorry, Leonora Feeney. Leonora Feeney is my absolute favorite. There's only one really good book of hers written in English. It's called Sphinx. And yes, it's mine. So I'll do another video about talking more about the female surrealists. But I think it's interesting that they chose to include Carrington in this because her art kind of evokes that sort of feeling you can sort of find in a lot of dark fairy tales. Even though to me, I don't think it's very dark, very eerie, very scary. To me, that's what dreams are. It's surrealism. But there's a lot of people that would rather watch a slasher film than read something that's really has you question reality or question society or look deep inside. And I think the theme with a lot of fairy tales is basically telling us to look for the monsters in society, look for the monsters around us, just not the made up stuff that men fear. Emphasis on men fear. So it's interesting when women write folklore or horror in general, because it is so very different. And like I said, all these are women, 2 are compilations, and 2 are by just short story authors, their own compilation of short stories. So again, 50 Beasts to Break Your Heart, The Gathering Dark, Folk, and Queens of the Abyss. So there you have it. Happy spring, wherever you are. Have a great day.